17, I ran away from home and from everything I had ever known. I was sick and tired, living in a town filled with narrow minds and hate. They used to laugh at me. Their children...
Hello. Thank you so much for tuning in to A Spoonful of Comfort. I am Claudrine Jackson. I am your host for A Spoonful of Comfort, and I have a very, very special guest in the studio with me today who gives me a lot of comfort. You know, we hear so much about the youth of today and how much trouble they get in and how many wrong things they do. Well, the man that I'm about to introduce to you is just the opposite. He is our hope for the future. He is one of our young people that is doing a lot to help make things better. And I'm very pleased and very honored to have as my guest today, State Senator Ian Conyers.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here and appreciate the opportunity to talk to your listeners about what brings us comfort and what we need to do to continue to grow that and to make sure that everyone has a fair chance and a thriving opportunity.
And you're not in a profession that gives you a lot, I know that gives you a lot of comfort, but it comforts us to know that this is our future. So you want to tell us a little bit about your background?
Absolutely. Well, I start off talking about how I grew up. I think, as we listen to the intro song, thinking about what childhood is like in this city and in this state, it's important for all of us to reflect. A lot of folks don't know I'm one of 8 brothers and sisters, and nowadays they call it a blended family, but when I was growing up it was get in the van. I'm the 4th of 8 brothers and sisters rather, 3 older brothers and sisters and 4 younger. I'm the first of those actually to go to high school and go on to college.
Wow.
And I also had the opportunity to get a master's degree in that. And so when you think about what your training ground is, for me, it's been that background and my brothers and sisters knowing what they're going through and still going through. That's what's driven me to public service, trying to make sure that everyone's family have an opportunity to be successful in this city.
I so greatly appreciate that. When did you know that you were going into politics?
Well, I always wanted to find a way to help out and see what was happening with the folks who make the decisions in our city. So the very first race I got involved with was the old House District 7 back in 2003. Now, they've changed the lines twice since then, but I was in charge of getting out the vote, which meant passing out kicker cards. And a friend of mine, I wasn't even finished with high school yet, got the idea that we'd help support an underdog candidate because no one else was going his way anyways. But when I saw all the folks involved in the excitement of Election Day, I was hooked from there on out. And since then, I've gone to work on local campaigns. One I'm very proud of nationally. In 2012, I was the regional field director for President Barack Obama on the eastern coast, really in Pennsylvania down to D.C., had the chance to work and organize in those communities. And then 2 or 3 campaigns with our very own legend, the Dean, my great-uncle, John Conyers. So from there, I went in and said, maybe it's time I ought to give this a try. And in 2016, we ran our own campaign and were successful.
Well, I am so pleased. Now, like I say, the youth, but you not only have youth, you've got the benefit of years of seeing what your great uncle accomplished in politics. Now, his great uncle, John Conyers, was great. If you look at the history of what he accomplished back during the 60s, during the civil rights movements, when there was a lot of marching, just like now, there was a lot of marching and people dissatisfied with the status quo. And they proved that if enough people get together for the same reason, they can accomplish something. So he is cut from the same cloth as his uncle, and he is in it for the right reason. I don't know if all politicians are in it for the right reason. But Ian Conyers here is in it for the right reason. He is our 4th district representative.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I got elected to the state senate in 2016. A little story about that. A lot of folks don't know I didn't start off running for the state senate. When I was back home in 2014, alongside the congressman fighting against the water shutoffs, I looked at these issues we have and realized they are not an act of God. They're not something that we, the people, must just endure and say, oh, well, another tornado. There are men, too many men, making these decisions, and that's largely in the State House. You don't have to go all the way to Washington, D.C. And so I started off running against an incumbent, state rep at that time. I put my hat in to represent my neighborhood, and through the powers that be, halfway through that race, the state senate seat became open. So we ran for that one, and were successful by knocking doors and getting our message out to the community. And it's been an honor to serve in our state senate. And I look again to what's happening in Washington, D.C. now. And the adage I go with is, if you can't beat them, join them. But if you beat them, don't join them. You don't have to. Once you win, you can really make a difference, and we want to keep making that difference and stay with that outsider mentality.
That's why I am so pleased to have you on, so people can get to know you and get to see what you're all about and find out some things about you. So I am grateful for what you are doing, because we need people like you looking out for people like me.
Thank you for that.
The elderly,
well,
handicapped.
The elderly, the seniors, those are the folks that gave me the opportunity to serve. And in our first election, there were a lot of great people running, and including those who had seniority over me. And the seniors looked at my resume, and they looked at my energy, and they said, put in the rookie. And they gave me an opportunity. This was always understood to be an audition, a tryout, to see if you could do the right job. And that's those folks that we work hard for. Our seniors have given everything they can to make sure the next generation can continue to lead. And if you don't understand that, then you really won't know the direction that we need to push for civil rights. Now, my uncle always said jobs, justice, and peace. And I was by his side when he'd also say not just political justice, but economic justice. And that's what we've been fighting for, to make sure that we create the environment for jobs in Detroit to flourish.
That's what we need. Now, this is April, and April is Autism Month. And those of you who've seen the show before, you know about me speaking about my son who is handicapped by autism. Well, Senator Conyers here does some work with people that are disabled, not just autism, but with people that have disabilities. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So in 2017, we put up a bill that was focused on making Michigan a super state for people with an intellectual or a physical disability. Senate Bill 257 would create a first-of-its-kind commission, an empowerment commission, to study how we can use our great state's resources, universities, and academic expertise to attract events from all over the world that celebrate those with a disability. And for that work, the ARC of Detroit, they gave me the 2017 Legislator of the Year. So we're very excited about that. But we don't take our wins as something to put on the shelf. It's something that you continue to work for. Once you get that award, that just means you need to work harder.
I really appreciate that. Sometimes people with disabilities are the forgotten people. And I appreciate the fact that they weren't forgotten by you. Mm-hmm. Now, I know that you were on a wonderful trip not too long ago, because I was on a wonderful trip too. I was in Mexico, and I visited the Mayan ruins. And I was so proud of the Mayan ruins. And then I talked to my daughter who works for Senator Conyers, and she says, well, he got baptized in the Sea of Galilee. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it was a blessing to get the opportunity to go see firsthand uh, Israel, and it wasn't my first time to the region. I had the chance to, before that, go visit Dubai and Bahrain, but going to the Holy Land took it to a whole nother level. And we were searching really to see what role Americans have in keeping the peace in that very tense region. Now, me as a Christian, I also had a religious request of being able to go to see the places that affect our faith. So we had the opportunity to go to Galilee, and that's where I had the chance to be baptized in Galilee, and it was just a blessing. And now folks don't often know it leads right out to the River Jordan. And the question that we asked ourselves that's most important is, it's so wonderful and beautiful in Galilee. Why would you ever go on to leave that place, to go on? But I think that is a central part of our campaign. It's don't be comfortable. Don't usher in an era of comfort and convenience. Always stay in that space where you're making noise and you're making a difference. Now, in this race as a state senator, I could simply seek my second term in the state senate. I'm not termed out, but I think that our country deserves and our city needs someone with the energy to lead, and so we're stepping out on faith and working hard every day to make sure that we're that representative to get the job done.
We are really blessed to have young people with your drive and your energy and your experience, and to know that it was important to you when you were in the Holy Land to experience some of those things. That lets us know a little bit more about you and your Christian background. So I greatly appreciate that.
Well, we take that into all of the legislation that I've put forward. I've got 16 bills that are sponsored by me. It's important for all the voters to look at what your legislators have written themselves. Everybody in Lansing will hand you a bill. Here's your bill. Here's your bill. We need to remember the old schoolhouse rock. How does a bill become a law?
Oh.
And if you are not looking at the difference between introducing legislation and authoring legislation, then you don't know what that legislator is up to. We write our own bills based off the community, from things like making sure we've got gunshot detection technology that every city in the country has besides Detroit, to making sure that we can teach our children about the food transportation network, and in the public schools make sure that they're educated on healthy eating and healthy living, to making sure that our special ed teachers get an extra bonus. Those are things that come directly from the community, and we want to make sure to push those as an agenda, not only in the state senate, but all the way to Washington, D.C.
I am a retired special ed teacher, so thank you so much for thinking of the special ed teachers. We teaching has lost some of the respect that you wouldn't know about back in my day. Teachers were highly respected and highly looked up to, but it seems like a lot of the professions have lost a lot of the respect. Now, I got involved in a political situation from the opposite side of you. When my son was born, who has autism, was born in 1975, up until 75, people with autism were put in institutions. And in 1975, the federal government said you have to start breaking down the big institutions. So when my son came along, autism did not even have its category in the disabilities spectrum. So we had to go, parents of children with autism, we had to go to the state legislature in Lansing to get autism a category, because there was no category for autism. Well, the first time we went, it didn't work. So we had to go back again. And I knew State Senator Jackie Vaughn, who was before your time, or do you know of Jackie Vaughn?
I know of Jackie Vaughn. I actually have a plaque in my office that State Senator Jackie Vaughn wrote in honor of my great-grandfather, John Conyers Sr., when he passed away in 1985.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had great respect for Senator Vaughn, too, because he was also in politics for the right reason. But Senator Vaughn, when I was saying what I wanted to get done for autism in the state of Michigan, and I'd say, it's the right thing to do. And he'd say, many politicians don't think about what's the right thing to do. They think about what's politically expedient.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that you think about what's politically expedient, but I also know that you think about what's the right thing to do.
Absolutely. Now, one moment in my life that comes to light in thinking about not being popular is specifically around the Michigan State Police Chief, Etchu, who I was the first legislator in the state to call on to resign from the Senate floor over the Facebook posting calling NFL players Ingrids and all types of names. But on further looking at that, it wasn't even about that single post. It was about the lack of minority hiring in the Michigan State Police, with the high water mark being 1993. Now, being uncomfortable in that space, as someone who loves and respects our men and women who work hard every day to protect us, it was a difficult choice. And if you'd have saw how many cool points I lost in the legislature with folks saying I didn't think you was one of them, but I was not elected to be the friendliest or the neatest person in the legislature. I was elected to make change, and you have to step out and be uncomfortable and challenge yourself. And that's exactly what folks have gotten out of me as a state senator, and that's what they'll get out of me as our next congressperson.
We're going to take a short break now, but please stay with me, because Senator Conyers has more things to share, and it's a very important congressional race coming up. I'm inviting everyone who's running for the same seat that Senator Conyers is running for to also be a guest on A Spoonful of Comfort. And we will see, we can learn about different aspects of our people who are running for this office, because it's a very important office. So we're going to take a short break. This is A Spoonful of Comfort. Please stay with us.
When I was 17, I ran away from home and from everything I had ever known. I was sick and tired, living in a town filled with narrow minds and hate. They used to laugh at me, their children called me names. I would run and hide, feeling so ashamed just for being born. I was just a boy, punished for a crime that was not mine. Life ain't so easy when you're a ghetto child. Oh baby, life ain't so easy when you're a ghetto child. No one tried to understand. Papa did the best a man could do. A child's reality is paid for by his folks' fancy fairy tale, or bought and sold by those who can well afford. Time to make believe, childhood dreams can still come true. So I've been wondering, traveling all around, guess it ain't my style to live in just one time. Still I'll never know why a child is blamed, ridiculed and shamed. We're all the same. Life ain't so easy when
Thank you for sticking with me for a spoonful of comfort. We say a spoonful of comfort because a spoonful is the minimum amount of comfort you can give anyone. And everyone has a spoonful of comfort. And, you know, we look to others for comfort, but why can't we be the comfort? You can give a spoonful of comfort. Even my son, who has autism, wants to give comfort. If you say, I need a hug, he comes to you and he gives you a hug. So everyone has a spoonful of comfort. And I'm glad that you stuck with me so that you can hear more from my special guest today, State Senator Ian Conyers. He is a senator that has education and experience at his young age. So can you imagine by the time he gets my age, all that he will have accomplished?
Thank you for that.
He has the passion and the energy to get accomplished what needs to be accomplished, to be going back and forth to Washington, D.C. And to, I have been to the Congress in Washington, D.C., but I know there's a lot of halls and a lot of walking and a lot of energy that you need to be able to do that.
Well, it's something for me, just to get a little bit into, you know, being prepared to take this step and being prepared to even be a state senator. That back and forth, I've been doing it my whole life. I was fortunate to get an academic and athletic scholarship to play football and run track in college at Georgetown University. That's the same school that our dear President Clinton went to.
All right.
And, you know, the folks you meet there in D.C. from our community, from other communities, are very focused on government and making sure it runs. But from there, that was learning about the people who make the decisions. I wanted to learn more about what to do and how to get the money and the resources to our district. So I got my master's there in urban and regional planning with a focus on transportation. So right now in the state Senate, I'm the minority vice chair and the only Democrat on transportation in the state Senate. And it's incredibly important to have someone there that is thinking about Detroit and transportation. And when I announced that I was running for Congress, they said, you always talking about these brothers and sisters you got. Where are they at right now? I said, they're working. And some of them are driving Lyft and Uber, not because it's hip, because they have mouths to feed. And I think it's incredibly important to remember who we represent in our district. We've got one of the most, what I call striving but thriving districts in the country. We've got folks who have been long-term without jobs, and if you're not someone that has come from that and wants to give back to that, it's going to be very difficult for you to make the case and connect with our people, what they're going through. And again, I go back to how we started off this conversation. That training for leadership comes from your family, comes from your home, comes from your brothers and sisters and what they're going through. I'm one of 8 brothers and sisters, but again, I'm an uncle to 9 or 10.
All right.
And understanding that those families have needs and we're thinking about the next generation is incredibly important. You all have worked so hard to create this Detroit for us. We need someone who understands the past but can go straight ahead into the future.
That's good thinking. So he is a man not only of knowledge but wisdom. Because you can have knowledge and not have wisdom. You need both. And I know people that are highly educated but don't have much wisdom.
Common sense, we call that.
And I know people that have a lot of wisdom that aren't highly educated.
Sure.
So our senator here has both. He has the wisdom and the knowledge and understanding. If he didn't have the understanding, he wouldn't have been at the Sea of Galilee in the Holy Land. He wouldn't be doing things for handicapped people, which is what he's doing. So that lets you know that he also has understanding along with his wisdom and knowledge.
Now, one more bill that we wanted to talk about that was incredibly important was getting back political power to the people. I wrote a bill that would make sure that we could have direct elections for all of these seats and all of these positions that our folks are running for. I think it's tremendously important for us to look around the country to see young women and men getting elected, and what that means to the black community, and making sure we have a transition and making sure that folks understand, but we can use that energy to flip this state. If you look down in Virginia, there's a young man named Justin Fairfax, who his energy was the only reason the Democrats even won the governor's ticket. Now, in a shameful manner, they kept his face off of the statewide mailer because they were concerned people wouldn't vote for him because he's black.
Oh, my.
But it was black women who knew he was running that surged to the victory, our super voters, and put the whole ticket over the top. And that would have never happened in the state of Michigan, sadly, because our candidates are picked in a party convention system. I think we ought to return the vote for the most important positions next to governor to our people. Lieutenant governor, attorney general, and secretary of state. Those ought to be voted on by the people. You can't have someone inherit being the governor. They should be voted on by the people. So we've been focused very closely on that.
Well, now, I thought they were voted on by the people.
So the way it's decided is a convention.
Ah, that's...
And they vote on it, they pick the slate, and there's people, who you don't know,
Okay.
who don't even live in the district, making decisions. We want that to be decided by the people. Now, here is why we think it's great. Imagine if you're a 20-year-old, and you're not too excited about the governor's race, but that Secretary of State candidate, she's got you real excited, and you want to bring your energy and knock all the doors you can to make sure she wins. Now, when her campaign is successful, then you're going to continue straight along into November and bring all the folks with you. If that's decided in a convention, we lose so many great candidates who would never run or never volunteer because they don't feel like their voice will be heard. They're not with enough clout. They don't have enough delegates. We've got to get direct elections in those important seats. And then maybe we can start winning these governor races. We've had only one Democrat win since 1991. John Engler was governor for almost 15 years, 1991 to 2003. Some say he's still the governor over there at Michigan State. And so we want to make sure we're getting great candidates, new candidates, and broadening the competition all the way.
Now, you're running in quite a crowded field.
Absolutely.
Is there something that you think separates you from the other candidates?
I'd say what we have a big focus on is the ability to give a fair shot to all the residents of the 13th. Now, I live in the 13th Congressional District, which is incredibly important to live in the community you represent. I come out of our congressional district. I didn't just start off as a state senator. Before running for office, I was the treasurer of our congressional district, meeting with all the different cities and respecting their individualism. We're the campaign that, through our office right now, already represent a very different district. I represent about a third of Detroit, but I also represent Lincoln Park, Allen Park, and Southgate. Now, the importance of the 13th district is to make sure that you know that the issues on the east side of Detroit, folks in Romulus are feeling that. Folks in Inkster are feeling that. Folks in Garden City are feeling that. They just need to be shown that the issues are the same. And so when you talk to those mayors downriver, folks that I've dealt with, they know that I'm a fair state senator. I'm not too one way or the other in terms of making sure that we give everybody a chance to participate. And through our office, you can be sure that you're going to get a responsive elected official.
That's going to have to be the last word unless you have another last word.
That's it. We'll be out there knocking.
And you're tuned into A Spoonful of Comfort. This is Claudine Jackson. This is State Senator Ian Conyers, who has dedicated himself to justice and public service, and I am so proud. I did not get involved in public service until I became the parent of a child with a handicap, and then I saw how important public service was. And I also, my son cannot talk, and I can, so I said I need to get out and try to make things better. So until next week, may the power of God protect you. May the presence of God comfort you, and may the love of God enfold you. This is Claudrine Jackson signing off for A Spoonful of Comfort with my special guest, Senator Ian Conyers. Thank you. Tune in next Tuesday.
When I was 17, I ran away from home and from everything I had ever known. I was sick and tired, living in a town filled with narrow minds and hate. They used to laugh at me, their children called me names. I would run and hide, feeling so ashamed just for being born. I was just a boy, punished for a crime that was